My story is that I attended this wonderful institution, and I had the privilege of taking classes in the Latin American Studies department and the Spanish department and Portuguese and theater and dance and the journalism school. And from all of these classes, I think I had the inspiration to become a storyteller and also to become a circus performer. And so after I graduated from college, I moved to Brazil and I joined a circus as a performer. And I was with the circus for 6 months, and that circus had, in addition to a social project, like in the film Without a Net, it also had other programs. So I was able to participate in the circus as a performer and get to know the people in the social project as, you know, someone who trained together with them, you know, doing our push-ups side by side and everything. So, so I got to hear their stories, and I was inspired by the stories of their day-to-day lives, of running from the police and dodging bullets and jumping through hoops and all that, and then their performances in the circus, which seemed to have a strong parallel with the way they told the stories of their day-to-day lives. So that was the spark that made me interested in making the documentary. Then I came back to California and did some research and found out that there are lots of projects like this in the world. They use circus as a tool for social change. And I applied for a Fulbright and proposed that I would like to make a film. And then once I was awarded the Fulbright, and then from the time that I was told that I would have the money, I had 1 year to take a lot of classes in filmmaking, which I did here at Cal and other places. So then I went back and made film. And it premiered earlier this year, and it's been traveling around. It's been in LA and New York and around the Bay Area and other parts of the US and London. And it's really great to come back to Berkeley and show it here.
How long did you follow the group?
I was there for 1 year, but then I went back a couple of times for the follow-up 1 year later and for pick-up shots and stuff. We're still in touch regularly. Yes?
I think with Barbara, she mentioned that she dropped out of school. Wouldn't that be seen as kind of like a negative impact?
Yeah, that's a good question. The question is about when Barbara says she dropped out of school. It's complicated. The reality is that about everybody in that area has dropped out of school, and her older sister dropped out of school before she did, and so she was going to drop out of school anyway, but the circus provided for her something fun for her to do in the afternoons. So yeah, it's complicated, but she wasn't destined to finish high school anyway. Yes?
Well, congratulations on your film.
Thank you.
It's quite something. I just wanted to ask you about first how you cast it, like with these people you performed with in the circus that you were, or you know, and how did you get them to be so comfortable? But the other question I had was maybe if you could talk about like the owner of the circus a little. Like I feel like you know, he's obviously doing something great, but then like some of those kids were sounding like he wasn't paying them or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a bit of those tropes of exploitation. So I'm just like, can you explain maybe like that?
Yes, good questions. Yeah, the first question is how the main characters became the main characters. Well, I spent 2 months in pre-production before I started principal photography on the film. So that 2 months was very important to build relationships and establish trust and friendship, and so to give them an opportunity also to decide if they wanted to be involved, because I wanted it to be somewhat collaborative. You may have noticed some of the scenes are shot by the performers when Hannah walks around and shows us, that's me in the mirror, that kind of stuff, and the dog Beethoven. And so I wanted to have this mutual trust where I could trust that if I gave them a camera, they'd bring it back, and they could trust me with their stories, and you know. And I wanted them to have a strong idea of what the film was going to be about, and they could decide if they wanted to be involved or not. So, so we built really strong relationships, and that's part of the reason why they, I think, are so open. And Also, so how did the main characters become the main characters? It was partly self-selection. Some of them really wanted to be involved, and I wanted them to decide. And some of them, it kind of depended. Jefferson definitely wanted to be involved, and from the very beginning, I knew that I wanted him to be a main character. He's, a force of nature. So I was really delighted that he was the main character. Barbara was the next one who seemed like she'd be a main character, and she decided after a little while that she thought I was funny, and she decided she wanted to, to be a part of it, and I thought her story was really interesting. And then Hayana was probably after that. When she had that strong relationship with Barbara, and once Barbara was part of it, she wanted part of it too. And so I knew that those three were going to be main characters. I followed some other teenagers who didn't make it into the final film as main characters. But Pachini was the last. I didn't know him very well. He was very shy. He didn't really talk to me. But one day I filmed him doing a performance with some other kids, and I gave him a DVD of his performance, and he took it home and showed it to his mom, and he came back the next day, and he had lots of stories for me. and as he said, his mom was really delighted to get to see that footage, and then he started telling me all kinds of stories, and he became the next main character, in addition to the older ones. The question about the director of the circus, Junior, he is a complex character, which is something you strive to find in a documentary. So he was a good find. What he's done is incredible, starting this program, and the children and teenagers benefit hugely from it. But he's also got an ego, and he's sometimes hard to work with, and so that's the basic story with him. But the fact that he started this program is so phenomenal. It has changed the lives of so many people. It's really wonderful. Was there another part of that? Okay. Oh, the pay thing. What Barbara says is that she was owed a little bit from the previous year. And the pay thing, yeah, they were given a stipend in order to offset the costs of life. If they weren't at the circus, they would have to be making money somehow. So they needed to receive some income to be able to keep training. And but the circus was also funded by various organizations, and that income, those grants didn't come in always on time. So that was one other thing that wasn't very stable in their lives. But what Barbara says is she was owed a little bit from last year, but generally they were paid their stipend more or less the time that they expected it. Yes?
I had two questions about Junior. Number one, he talks about his background as like basically an activist, and so like how did he get involved with circus stuff? Is that like a common thing in Brazil, or like did he have experience as a circus performer?
Yeah, another question about Junior. How did he get involved in circus? Yeah, he was a community activist, and he was involved in social uprising and community organizing, and he got together with another person in the circus who was a clown, and they decided they'd heard about this idea of doing social circus, and they thought that they would like to do something interesting and provocative, and they decided that they'd like to start one. So the neighbor talks about how it actually started a little bit in the beginning, where he got a circus, he got a tent. He asked the neighbor to store the stakes for him, and in the middle of the night, he and some other people that he hired came in and erected the tent in the middle of the night in this abandoned parking lot. So it was illegal what they were doing. But then when the police came to shut them down in the morning, it was already set up, and and the kids were running around, and the space wasn't really being used for anything else beneficial, so they decided to let it stay. And then when they lost their space, getting ready for building the infrastructure for the World Cup and the Olympics, the city, by that time, recognized the benefits of the program and helped them relocate. So yeah, they really established themselves as a program that was socially beneficial.
And the other part of my question was, the film begins with a quote from him saying he didn't want this to just be like poor kids learn to do circus.
Mm-hmm.
And also the bit about relocating the circus, like the subtitle in the film when it says that they lost the lot, it sounds like that was the end of the circus, but you just told us that it went on. So do you feel like you were successful in doing what he said at the beginning of the film?
Yeah, good question. The quote at the beginning of the film is, we don't want this to come off as a, I forgot what the insignificant little show where people come in and they say, oh, look, the poor black kids learned to jump. And I think that was the mission of the circus. They didn't want it to be for an audience to come and say, oh, they're poor, but oh, they can do something, they're okay, they can do something cool. The circus wanted the performers to be valued for their skills and their ability. And I think they were effective in that, absolutely. The last title on the last title card about the circus losing their space is correct. The circus lost their space, but then because they had established themselves as a beneficial program, the city was able to help them relocate. But when they relocated, the program changed quite a bit. It's still for at-risk children, but the teenage program is not really for at-risk youth anymore. It's for any youth interested in circus.
Is that good or bad?
It's just a change. There are a lot of social projects in Rio, so some of the performers who were featured or the ones who weren't featured there, and most of the some of the people who you saw in the film have continued training with circus in other programs. So Jefferson is back with the circus now with another program in Rio, and so is Barbara recently. Hayan has been in and out, and some of the other people that showed up in the footage but weren't main characters have continued or have returned to circus as well. Yes? No?
Yeah. Can you talk more about your routine when you were there? Did you live really close to them in Rio de Janeiro? And what mostly impressed you about Rio de Janeiro? Or
Sure.
about this specific community that you lived with?
Yeah, the question is, can I talk more about my own experience in filming the project and living in Brazil and what impressed me about the community? I did not live where they lived. I moved a few times, but I lived in the southern part of the city, which is the wealthier part of the city. And but I went to the circus every day, and I went to their homes with them regularly. I mean, several times. So I had a good idea of what their lives were like and what their homes were like. There were so many things that inspired me about them. They have these huge challenges, seemingly insurmountable obstacles, and yet this desire to keep going, and their resilience and their ability to cope in those situations, it really inspired me, and gave me a good impression of humanity. Those are some of the things that really made me interested in that community, it's sort of the community, but specifically the individuals that I got to know.
We have time for one more question.
Yes?
Can you maybe talk about, I guess, who you met first from the group, or if there was like sort of like a, you know, that icebreaker day or that day when the door to the story kind of opens and you just kind of feel, you know.
Sure. Can I talk more about the character? How about I tell you some stories about the characters? I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you two. De Jefferson was such a phenomenal person to know, and I continue to be in touch with him. And there was one story that didn't quite make the final cut, but it was one I really enjoyed, which was the story of his name. The name De Jefferson, it comes, well, a lot of babies are named after names in English or from the United States, and so some people are named Jefferson. But with the pronunciation in Portuguese, if it's spelled the way we spell it, it comes with a soft J, so Jefferson. So some people put in the D to make Jefferson. But our Jefferson couldn't read or write, so he didn't know that his name started with a D, and somebody told him at age 10 that his name starts with a D, but explained that the first letter of his name is silent. So he said, I don't want the first letter of my name to be silent. So he renamed himself De Jefferson, but he's probably the only De Jefferson in the place. In the country, you know. The other story I wanted to tell you is about that scene where Alan and De Jefferson go to the cliff and jump off the rocks. That scene happened towards the end of the shoot, and I had noticed these themes developing about birds and weightlessness and flight, and a sense of reaching for those fleeting moments of weightlessness. And so they told me that they sometimes go and jump off the rocks. And I thought that would really fit in well with this theme that's developing. And so I asked them if I could go with them sometime and film them, and we planned a day, and we went over there. And the way they told it also was very macho, and you know, it's very high, and everybody's afraid to jump. And so we went over there, and they got to the rocks, and they looked down, and they said the things that they said, fucking dangerous and all that, and they refused to jump. So I really wanted the shot, and I had it all planned, and it was going to really fit with the movie and everything. So the only way, so there's something that's not quite true about the film. De Jefferson wasn't the first one to jump. The only way that I could get them to jump was if I jumped first. Thank you all for coming. What a pleasure it has been to answer questions.